class, this is Mrs. Laws again. We are going to talk about persuasion today. And so when you have the purpose of persuading someone, you have lots of different things in mind, and there are lots of different ways that you can do it. So the first thing that I'd like for y'all to do is go ahead and put your title kind of up at the top of your paper, just persuasion. So some of those words that we can use to, call being persuaded would be to influence, to convince, to change the reader's mind. Those are just three. What I would like for you to do is see if you can think of a couple more off the top of your head that mean the same thing as to persuade. So for persuading someone, we're influencing them, we're convincing them to maybe change their minds, we're trying to change their minds. See if you can come up with a couple of others, either off the top of your head or look in your thesaurus and see if you can come up with a few synonyms there if you can't think of any on your own. So it's all about trying to convince someone. That's why we try to persuade them. So there are lots of ways that media, we've talked about media before, lots of ways that we can be influenced by the media. So we're going to talk about the main persuasive techniques that they tend to use. Now some of these are credible, some of these are okay to use, and some of them are kind of tricky. They're trying to talk you into it by maybe using some faulty logic. And so we'll talk about both of those. So these are all different persuasive techniques. So that's also kind of part of your title. So persuasive techniques. Put that somewhere up at the top. So over here on the left, I'm going to put the terms, and then over here on the right side is where I'm going to go ahead and take notes about that. So if I write it down, you write it down. All right, the very first one I'm going to talk about is the word ethos. Now, these are all Latin, Greek words. I can't remember which one. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that we still use them today, so they're widely accepted in the English language. So ethos is the first one, and ethos has to do with trust and credibility. And if you'll think about it, how can you build trust and credibility with someone? How can you get somebody to believe what you say, to trust you, to go along with what it is that you're talking about? Well, in writing and in advertising, print ads, commercials, radio, magazines, just about everything, what you can do to become credible is to basically let people get to know you. So it's all about being true, being honest, and also having experience. So if you have a degree in what you're talking about, you probably are trustworthy. If you have had a personal experience with it, you could probably be considered trustworthy too. So being true, being honest. So basically it rolls around to, having experience in that matter. Okay, so with ethos we have two different kinds basically. The one that we can completely trust is called testimonial. So testimonial is a type of technique that's used a lot. This is when we have someone who basically acts as a spokesperson for a company. So this is someone who either, it could be a doctor who speaks out about a certain medication. It could be a dentist who recommends a certain type of toothpaste. It could be Michael Jordan who is speaking on behalf of a certain brand of tennis shoes because he's an athlete, he should probably know shoes. It may be a little bit different if he's selling his own shoes. But basically, testimonial comes into having a spokesperson. And it's usually someone who uses it and they like it. So then they recommend it. Uses it, likes it, recommends it. So testimonial is a spokesperson who is credible. We need to add that. It's someone who we can trust. It's people who are probably not getting paid for giving their recommendation to it. It's just somebody who genuinely likes it and they recommend it. On the other side, we may have another one called false authority. Now, this one is not necessarily trustworthy. With false authority, there usually is money changing hands somehow. So we still have a spokesperson, but in this case, we have a spokesperson who's probably not credible. So in this case, it's either someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. They either don't have the experience or they don't have that that knowledge built in, and so they really can't know what they're talking about and recommending. Or it could be that maybe I'm trying to sell my product and I just happen to throw in someone's name, like Jessica Simpson recommends my brand. Well, if Jessica Simpson is not actually herself recommending it, but I say she is, I'm using this as false authority. She didn't give me her word. I'm just saying, oh yeah, she uses it. So in that case, you can't trust me. So it's either a spokesperson who is not credible or celebrity names are just simply being used. Or even their face. So basically it comes down to their brand. So celebrity names, faces, their brand are being misused. Okay, so testimonial's good, false authority's bad, but they're both still forms of ethos. It's just that one is what you should use, one is what a lot of people use just simply because it works, it sells. People sometimes don't question authority. All right, the next type of persuasive technique is pathos. This is probably the most popular form of advertising technique around. So we have ethos first, and now we're down to pathos. Pathos basically means that it affects your emotions somehow. So it is a technique that affects your emotions. So when it comes to your emotions, it's going to make you feel something. And they're banking on if you feel something when you see this commercial, maybe you'll get up and go do something about it. You'll go buy their product, you'll donate money, you'll rush to the store and get it because it's about to go away forever. So it affects your emotions, it makes you feel a certain way. So with pathos, we have several different kinds of that too. These are the most popular. The first one is called sentimental appeal. With sentimental appeal, they're really either trying to make you feel one of two ways. One of the most popular is to make you feel very sad, very depressed about it. So this is very much like those animal shelter, starving kids. It's those commercials that play the really sad music in the background and then make you feel so bad that you just immediately get up and change the channel. For those of you who don't change the channel, you might feel badly enough about what's happening to go do something about it, or you talk your parents into going and doing something about it. So sentimental appeal is all about sadness. And usually it has a terrible music, so depressing music. And it usually has some type of a, not a commentator, but a narrator, I guess if you would say, in the background. So depressing music and serious narrator. Okay, and then the other type of sentimental appeal is when it makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And so it can also work for animal shelters. Instead of showing the poor, helpless, little wounded animals, they might show the really cute puppies and kitties playing, chasing the ball, a little cute kid hugging and loving all over the animal. And so if it makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, still very effective and affecting your sentiment, your emotions. So it gives you the warm fuzzies. All right, so That's sentimental appeal. The next one is scare tactics. A scare tactics is exactly what it sounds like. They're going to try to scare you into either doing something or into not doing something. This is a whole lot like the smoking commercials that you'll see on TV. The people who've actually smoked, and it will show you the devastating results that they have on their body, and it'll scare you into never doing it again. But you're thinking, if it's a person who's telling their own story, Mrs. Laws, is it still scare tactics? Yeah, but then it could also be testimonial. So that's the thing, is that these people, these companies who produce these advertisements, they know what they're doing. They know how to persuade you. So, hey, if one works well, two probably work even better. So there's a lot of times where you'll see several different techniques used at once. All right, so scare tactics either scares you into doing it or not doing it. Another example of this would be like a home security system. It might show a commercial of someone breaking into your house, and you're scared to death, and so this makes you want to go out and protect your family. So you're scared into doing it. Okay, scare tactics. It frightens you into doing it, or even not doing it. A lot of the times the not doing it falls under PSAs, which are public service announcements. And we'll look at those in class more. But the non-smoking would definitely fall under a PSA. All right, there's one more example for pathos I want to talk to you about, and that's called a sense of urgency. If something is urgent, it's a matter of importance that must happen right then. So with a sense of urgency, it makes you feel like you have to go take care of it immediately. These are those going out of business sales. These are those one-time offers. This is the infomercials where they say, if you call in the next 10 minutes, we'll throw in an extra one for free if you pay shipping and handling. There's always a gimmick to it. Okay, but sense of urgency makes you feel like it has to happen right then. Hopefully, as I'm talking to you about this, you're thinking of some other examples that you've seen. I know y'all watch a lot of TV. Even with the apps, you have those in-app advertisements all the time. So I'm pretty sure you've probably seen an example of every single one of these, if you'll just kind of stop and think about it for a moment. So let's kind of recap what we talked about so far. So we have persuasive techniques. People are trying to persuade you. They're trying to convince you. They're trying to change your mind. You're supposed to think of a few other synonyms for that and add to your list. We're starting off with ethos. Ethos is all about trust. It's all about credibility. It's all about being honest and upfront and having experience in that matter, or knowledge. I'm going to go ahead and add that. Experience and or knowledge. Brain power is pretty important. And then we have two types of that we talked about. Testimonial, that's when we have a spokesperson who's credible. False authority is a spokesperson who's not really credible, or it's people's names kind of being used when they don't give permission to. Then we have pathos. Pathos affects your emotions. It's trying to make you feel a certain way. So we have sentimental appeal, where it makes you either feel sad or it gives you the warm and fuzzies all over. We have scare tactics that kind of frightens you into doing it or not doing it, like those PSAs. And then we have a sense of urgency, where it makes you feel like, let's go, let's go, let's go. We got to go buy it right now. All right, last one we're going to talk about is logos. This is probably the most important one of all if you are trying to be a legitimate, credible business owner. This is the one you're going to want to use because people are going to trust you more. Logos is all about facts, statistics, survey results, evidence, graphs. I could keep going. It's all about the proof. It's all about you saying, you know what, you should buy this because of this right here. This is stuff that I found out because I've done my research. So logos is all about the proof. This is, if you're doing a research paper, this is what you have to have in there. Or people, your teacher especially, is no, we're not going to trust you. So logos works very well when it comes to persuading people too. This is the one that people tend to take for granted because, you know, this is fun to do when you scare people, when you make people feel a certain way. This is fun because it involves celebrities. But, you know, logos is kind of the tried and true method. This is the one that, you know, really, this is the most important, I think. All right, one type of logos that could be misinterpreted or throw people off. This is one that's not necessarily credible. It's called a red herring. A red herring is kind of like a misleading clue. This is something that people might use when they don't have enough facts. They don't really have enough statistics, so they kind of throw you off the trail. They talk about something else and they kind of get your mind off track. So this is, if you watch the movie Up, where we have that goofy dog that's always like, squirrel! This is very much like that. He kind of gets everybody off track because he goes off in a different direction. So a red herring is often kind of the squirrel in the situation. So what this does is kind of diverts attention from the real issue. All right, so that is a red herring. Here's an example of that, because this is one that we don't hear about nearly as often as the others. So let's say that we have a teacher who catches a student we have a teacher who catches a student cheating during a test. And the student, you know, when he's confronted by the teacher, says, yeah, I know I've made a mistake, but think of my parents. They're going to kill me. In this case, the student's using a red herring to get the teacher off track by thinking of the student's parents instead of thinking about the students cheating on the test. So that's kind of how a red herring works. It's also in a lot of mystery novels, you know, where the killer kind of sets a clue aside to kind of divert the investigator from the real track, the real trail. So you've seen this before, you just didn't know that's what it was called. And I just realized that I forgotten one of the most well-known examples of pathos of all, and we got to add that now. So what I want you to do is find a way. I'm just going to kind of stick it in right here on my paper, but you need to know that this is an example of pathos. So I know you're probably not very happy with me right now. Sorry, I forgot. But bandwagon. Bandwagon is something we absolutely have to add here somehow. So bandwagon is an example of pathos, and this is one where it makes people feel like they're being left out if they're not involved. So bandwagon usually has a lot of it has a group of people, and they're all using that new technology. So you feel like, oh my gosh, everybody else has it, I need it too. This is when on a book cover it says New York Times bestseller. Well, that must mean that everybody in the world's been reading that book, and so you better go ahead and go to the bookstore and get that book too. So bandwagon makes you feel left out. So you want to be part of the crowd. Alright, so I've gone on forever and ever and ever. Again, just recap really fast. So ethos is all about trust and credibility. We have testimonial, which is good. We have false authority, which is bad. And then we have pathos. So this is all about your emotions. This is going to make you feel a certain way. So sentimental appeal can make you feel really sad and depressed, or it can give you the warm and fuzzies inside. Scare tactics scares you into doing something or not doing it. Sense of urgency makes you feel like you gotta get it right then. Bandwagon, just added that one in. This is the one that makes you feel left out because everybody else is doing it. I know you've used this on mom and dad before. It may have worked. It shouldn't have though. Logos. This is all about facts, statistics, survey. This is all about the proof and the evidence. You've done your research. The bad form of that would be a red herring when it's a misleading clue. So I want you to review these notes, see if you can think of some examples that you've seen or watched or heard of that use some of these different persuasive techniques, and we will talk more about these in class. Adios.